The flop shot is a fun shot to hit. If you're having to use it a lot, you're probably not scoring very well, but it's still a fun shot to hit, a fun shot to practice, and a fun shot to show off with some friends. It's one of the shots that I learned growing up as a kid, trying all different shots around the green, around the bunker, around the trees in my backyard. One of the things that you have to understand is that we're taking out all direct contact from the golf ball. We're hitting it indirect, we're hitting it heavy. And because of that, we need a lot of energy, a lot of club head speed to get the ball to go a very short distance. So I have my 60-degree wedge that I'm going to use to hit this lob shot. But I want you to notice I'm going to hit a regular shot first. And when I do, the ball goes 90 yards. Now, from that, I'm going to hit a lob shot that hopefully goes 9 yards. Because again, we're taking out all that direct contact. We're driving the club into the ball or into the ground behind the ball. And so it's not being propelled forward. Now to do this, we have to do a couple of things in our setup. We have to open up our setup and put our weight forward. This will allow us to open up the club head and the face and have it aimed at the target. Our weight has to be forward so that we can drive the club into the ground behind the ball. What's causing the ball to go up is not this hand action. I'm not flipping my hands trying to help it up. I'm driving the club into the ground and the bounce is causing it to pop up into the ball. That's how I'm getting it to go high. So I have to hit it heavy and I have to have some bounce on the club. So I'm going to open up so that the club face is flat. I want the top of the toe almost touching the ground. I want it vertical. I don't want there to be any loft on the club. Again, because when it hits the ground, it's going to pop back up into the ball. That's how I'm getting it up, not the loft, so I won't go underneath it. I open up the face, my weight is forward, and I'm going to drive the club down into the ground right behind the ball. Now what's interesting is you have to assess the lie when you hit this shot. Because if you try that technique on a fluffy lie, you'll go right underneath it. If the ball is sitting up, like this is, where the ball's higher off the ground, if I drive the club into the ground, watch what happens. I go right underneath it. So what I have to do to compensate for that is level out my weight. This will shallow out the bottom of the arc. So I'll put myself up on a pretty high lie here. And again, if I drive the club in behind, it will dig underneath and the ball won't go anywhere. So I have to level out. This is especially critical in rough because the ball could sit high in the rough or it could sit low. So now if you notice, my weight is level. I don't have it forward where I could pick up my rear foot. I level out my weight. This shallows out the bottom of the arc and I'm able to hit a high soft lob shot. Now, if I do that on a tight lie, if I have a lie where the ball is sitting down and I level out my weight, what's going to happen? I'm going to blade it. We have to drive the club into the ground when the lie is tight. So when the lie is tight, I really have to put my weight forward and I've got to drive the club right down into the ground. And then I'm able to hit the high lob shot. The most critical element of the lob shot is assessing the lie. Once we assess the lie, we determine where our weight is going to be positioned. If it's a tight lie, our weight is forward. If it's a fluffy lie, our weight is back. But it's the same technique, the same energy, and it's important to realize how far behind the ball we're entering the ground. So the flop shot is a fun shot to try. And what we're doing is we're using altitude, we're using trajectory to get the ball to come in dead onto the greens. But if we have the right lie, we can actually hit a low spinning flop shot. It doesn't look the same, it doesn't go as vertically high, but it has a lot of spin and your buddies are gonna wonder what just happened. And you hit it basically the same way. The only difference is I'm not going to be driving behind the ball. I'm going to come down on the ball. You can only do this when there's not grass between the ball. Otherwise, it will come off without spin. If you have a clean lie, you can try this shot, and it's fun. Now, because you're catching ball first and you're not having that indirect contact, you cannot use as much energy. You can't take such a full swing at it. All you do is change where you strike impact. You move it closer to the ball. So my weight is forward, the face is laid flat. I've opened up my stance so that I can swing down my body line and have the ball go to the target. And I come in steep, and I'm able to use spin to get the ball stopped. Bunker play. It is an awesome thing to practice because there's carryover effect. Dave Pell showed in his studies that as bunker play increases, so does driving performance. How is that? It's because in bunker play, you need to have a good rhythm to the shot. You don't try to hit it. You're not trying to get distance. You're trying to get the ball up high and soft and onto the green. With driver, we often get this hit. So as we practice bunker play and develop this good rhythm, it carries over into other parts of our game. In 2008, I went from 83rd to 3rd in bunker play, doing one thing differently, and it wasn't technique. In Dave Pell's studies, he found that the average bunker play on tour, it took place from 10 yards. So I practiced exclusively from 10 yards, trying to get every shot inside that 3-foot circle. That's our goal, get it inside the 3-foot circle where we know we can make the next putt. And my record was 28 in a row that I was able to get inside the 3-foot circle. I still try to do that every week. I try to break my record. Now, the questions I get asked are how far behind the ball should I hit? At what angle should I hit into the sand? It doesn't matter. What matters is that you continue the motion through the shot. You then will find the right spot to get the ball out. So we break our wrists early, just like the hinge and hold. And look at my hands. Look how high up into the finish they are. That's what's important in bunker play. The most critical element to bunker play is to continue your hands into the finish. Just like putting, just like chipping. We cannot stop our hands. We need to keep the leading edge and the bounce consistent as long as possible, just like out of the grass, just like chipping. But in the sand, it's even more critical because the bounce on the club will kick the leading edge up into the ball if we stop our hands and let the club keep going. We have to keep our hands and club traveling together at the same speed so we keep the leading edge and the bounce as consistent, as similar as possible for the longest period of time through impact. If you notice, my hands accelerate all the way up into the finish. Look where they are. They're not down here at impact. This does not count too, by the way. That doesn't count. You have to accelerate everything up into the finish. Developing this basic rhythm, this basic motion is the most critical element to being a good bunker player. You have to continue your hands into the finish. Now, once we have this basic motion down, it's very similar to chipping from off the green. In fact, we can practice our bunker play through chipping from off the green. We're keeping our ball position the same, off of the front foot. We're trying to get the ball high and soft, so what do? We open the face and then adjust our body. Just like when we open our face from off the green using the hinge and hold method, exactly the same. On a good lie, our weight and position will be fairly level, maybe slightly forward, and the ball will pop right on out, as long as we keep our hands moving into the finish. The average bunker play on tour, it took place from 10 yards. So I practiced exclusively from 10 yards, trying to get every shot inside that 3-foot circle. That's our goal, get it inside the 3-foot circle where we know we can make the next putt. The basic concepts of bunker play is almost identical to what you've already been doing in chipping. The most critical element to bunker play is to continue your hands into the finish. Just like putting, just like chipping. We cannot stop our hands. If you notice, my hands accelerate all the way up into the finish. We're keeping our ball position the same, off of the front foot. We're trying to get the ball high and soft, so what do? We open the face and then adjust our body. Just like when we open our face from off the green using the hinge and hold method, exactly the same. On a good lie, our weight and position will be fairly level, maybe slightly forward, and the ball will pop right on out, as long as we keep our hands moving into the finish. When we get to the fine-tuned shots around the bunker, uphill lies, fluffy sand, downhill lies, it's the same concept as what you've learned in the lob shot. When we have an uphill lie, or if the sand is fluffy, we know in the lob shot, if we put our weight forward and drive the club behind it, we go right underneath it. So what we have to do when we get lies like that that are fluffy or uphill, we have to set our weight back. We have to shallow out the bottom of the arc. This allows the ball to pop up nicely. We're not doing anything different in our setup. The ball position is the same. We're setting it up the same on uphill lies, the same on basic shots. When we get to a downhill lie, it is the same as a lob shot. If we keep our weight leveled out, what's going to happen? We're going to blade it. So we have to get our weight forward to be able to drive the club underneath the ball. This is where we move the ball fractionally forward in our stance, opening the face just like the lob shot, and we drive the club right behind the ball, popping it up high and soft. So the concepts of bunker play are identical to the fundamentals of what we're learning chipping. They all tie together. In the sand, we often get buried lies, and this is a very difficult shot to control. But there are things we can do to improve our chances and to control the ball somewhat. We're obviously not going to spin the ball out of this lie. Our hope is to get it up and control somewhat where it rolls out. It's going to have zero spin. This ball is plugged on an uphill lie. Now what I'm going to do here is I cannot finish high because the club will not get fully underneath the ball. All I can do is drive it just behind the ball and have the club stick into the ground. So I have to keep leading with my hands. I cannot let the club pass again. But what I want to do is I want to stick it into the ground as such. So the arm and the club stay in a straight line. and I'm just driving it right behind the ball. I'm opening the face. My weight is forward because we're trying to keep the club underneath the ball. The ball will get out. We just have to drive the club underneath. What we don't want to do is blade it, have our weight back where the leading edge comes up. We have to keep the leading edge down. So my weight is forward, I'm leaning into the hill, I drive it in, and if you notice the ball popped up, but look, my arm and club are still in a straight line. My hands continued, but it just stuck into the ground. It stayed ahead of the club. I didn't stop my hands and let the club pass. You cannot get out of a buried lie doing that. Here's another buried lie. Same thing, uphill lie. I'm going to drive my weight forward into the ground, into the hill, and same thing, driving my hands forward, leading ahead of the club head so that the club and the leading edge will never pass my arm. And the ball pops out, almost goes in. Now here, we have a downhill lie. Obviously, this ball is not going to get up as high and as soft. It's going to release a little bit more. I'm going to go to a further pin just to let the ball run out. If I had a tight pin, there's not much you can do. You just have to try to get it out. But it's the same principles as the lob shot combined with this buried lie. We have our weight forward, and we are not going to finish real high. We're going to stick it into the ground with my hand staying ahead of the club. You cannot get any of this. You'll blade it. The leading edge will never get under this ball that's way down in the sand. So the weight is really forward, ball is forward, and I'm driving it straight down into the ground. I'm actually not hitting it that hard. I'm not going to take this full swing because the ball's going to come out with no spin, so I have to play for that. So I'm just going to take a little shorter backswing actually on this downhill lie and let the ball pop up. And then it runs out. The long bunker shot is not that hard. We're going to keep it simple and very consistent to what we've been doing on normal bunker shots. A normal bunker shot, I have my 60-degree wedge. The ball position is the same. The swing is the same. The hinge and hold method, accelerating our hands to the finish. It's the exact same for a long bunker shot. Now I'm going to swing as hard as I feel comfortable in the sand, and this is as far as I hit my 60-degree wedge out of the sand. That's as far as I feel comfortable hitting a 60-degree wedge out of the sand. If I have a longer shot, a lot of times I see instructions saying you have to hit closer to the ball and take less sand. That's crazy. You don't want to do that. The margin for error is minimal, and the chances are you're going to blade it over the green. We're going to use the same exact bunker shot, using a little less loft, taking a little more club. So I'll drop down to a sand wedge. Everything is the same. The ball position is the same. The swing with the hinge and hold accelerating into the finish will be the same. And the ball goes farther. Now I'll drop all the way down to a pitching wedge, sometimes even a 9-iron, to hit shots, hit explosion shots out of the sand upwards of 40, 50 yards. Same everything. Ball position is the same. I always keep the club face slightly open so we have a little bit of bounce. So our goal is to get it inside the 3-foot circle, obviously, but if not there, each foot is critical. And we try to get it inside that 3-foot circle. maybe in. Oh, no. Almost. But we know we're going to make the putt. All right, let's have some fun with our short game. Here's a trick shot that you can hit easily and your buddies won't know what in the world you just did. We're going to put two balls together and we want to have a lip in the bunker because when we strike this first ball as hard as we can, this second ball is going to race into the lip and hopefully stay in the sand so your buddies don't see it. This ball that we strike is going to shoot really high up in the air, hit the green, and back up 100 feet. That's how we can practice without having to retrieve balls. The backward shot. This shot is fun. A bit challenging, yes, but once you understand the physics of it, I believe you can do it too. And yes, I have had to use it in competition. At the AT&T National Pro-Am, I hit it over the green in the back edge of the bunker on a severe slope and was able to hit the backward shot onto the green. Now, to do this shot, we need to have a pretty severe incline, obviously. But the big difference is, on a normal release of the club heads, your hands turn over and the club head closes. This shot, I'm going to cut my wrist. Look at my hand action, how I've cut my wrist, and look at how the face is aimed backwards. Now this is totally opposite from all we've talked about the hinge and hold. When we do this, the leading edge is going to come up and we're going to have more bounce, and yes, a blade or hitting it thin is a very real possibility. So I'm going to try to get underneath the ball with the club and then kind of flip it back with my hands. We've got the pin set over here about 35 feet away. I'm going to set myself with the hill here. So my body, my shoulders, everything is with the hill. I'm going to come from underneath and I'm just going to flip it back with my hands. Oh, come on, baby. Do it. Oh, I misread it. Okay, here we go. Oh, come on, baby. Do it. Oh, I misread it. Okay, here we go. Oh, come on, baby. Do it. Oh, I misread it.
Yay!
Woo! We've seen how on the golf course, the putting tutor and the elevated aim line are able to help us with our alignment, with our speed, our stroke, and the reading of the greens. But is there anything we can do off the course, in the off season? There's something I've been doing for a few years now. It's with a laser aimer. And what I do is indoors during the off season for a couple minutes a day, I use this laser aimer to train my eyes to line up correctly. We've seen throughout the instructional how important it is to line up properly during putting. So this laser aimer is a voice-activated laser. I stick something behind it, a club or a stick. In this case, because the door has a nice line, I'll use that as the hole. And what I'll do is put a mirror on my putter. So I have a mirror that I stuck onto my putter, or because I've been doing this for a while, I had Odyssey make a mirror inserted putter. And then I'll stick dots, little sticker dots, along the line of the laser, and I'll line up at this point. On. And we could see that the laser was slightly right. So I'm going to try it again. On. And that was a little bit better. So I'll step back. On. That was along the strip of the door that I was looking for. We'll try it back here. On. It was on the same strip, so I've been doing a little bit better. Now what I want to do is I want to simulate a stroke. So when I'm putting, I'll take a practice stroke. I'll step in. On. It was a fraction right, but it wasn't too bad from this distance. So this is how I train myself. This is how I train my eyes for better alignment in the off season, as well as during the season when I'm at home. You can get the laser aimer, you can get the putting tutor and the elevated aim line at pelsgolf.com or philmickelson.com. These are the only products that I endorse for the simple reason that I've used them for years and they work. I want to thank the Bridges at Rancho Santa Fe for providing such a beautiful backdrop, as well as the ideal short game facility for me to share with you my secrets to the short game. Now that you have my secrets, you have everything you need to develop a world-class short game. So please, no more questions about how I hit these shots.
Here it comes. The guys might go in. Look at this.
As good as it gets.
Game, set, and match.
How about Phil down there? What has he got? Has he got anything?
He's got nothing. It's plugged. We're going to see his short game skills.
There we go.
Uphill line with your help.
I'll bet she gets this ball up and down. Oh, look at the shot. It's going in. Wow, the worse it is, the better he gets.
Most marvelous bunker shots I've ever seen.
Watch the speed with this shot, Jim. Watch the speed right through the ball.
Look at the length of the swing.
Imagination he displays around the green is just breathtaking sometimes. And play with a lot of players, seen a lot of stuff, and he just never ceases to amaze me. How about this? Finish it off in style. That's the way a champion should finish.
It's just boring playing from the center of the fairway all day. We need Phil to stray a little bit.
Well, he's got a good angle, but he has a downhill line. up over those two trees. Oh, is this any good? Is that any good? Total creativity.
This will be a mini explosion shot. It's all he can do, so it's a guess. This is where years of playing these things pays off right here.
It's a good one. It's a great one. And Mickelson's a foot away from the title. He's the champion. And Phil's fanatics rejoice.
Okay, good. Hold the roll. Hold the roll. Say when ready, Phil. We rolling, guys? Yes. Okay. And 2, 1, do it.
That's fine. Yeah.
Hold on, everybody. 2, 1, and go. Sam.
Let me see.
So, Tip, you got that bag right. Okay, good cut. Okay, you good to go, Patrick?
Ready to go, yes, sir.
Okay, all right, everybody in standby. I'll go from 3, 2, 1, and go. And 3, 2, 1, go. Ready camera, ready Phil, and go camera, go Phil.
Hey guys, Phil Mickelson here. Track your shots, track your rounds so you can identify what areas of your game you need to concentrate on the most. In Secrets of the Short Game, I'll show you how not to just get by, but how to have a world-class short game.
Yeah, you got the whole thing, A to Z. Okay, good, yeah.
Well, when Terry Jastro first came to me about doing an instructional, I said, well, I'm not going to do an instructional until I've won a major. I don't feel I have enough credibility until I win a major championship to come out with an instructional. And then, when I won the 2004 Masters, I wasn't able to use that as an excuse.
In the 80s, Jack Nicklaus did his golf instructional program called Golf My Way, and it was hugely successful. And many of the other great players followed in suit. Arnold Palmer did his, Greg Norman, Curtis Strange, not long after Tom Kite. I know because I actually had the pleasure of producing and directing all of those golf instructional videos. But as time went along, the great teachers of the game, Butch Harmon, Ledbetter, Flick, etc., did golf instructional programs, but it became apparent that no great player had done a golf instructional program for many years. So actually 6 years ago, in 2003, I began to bug Phil about doing his golf instructional video.
I just felt like the time was right now. I've been out on tour for a good number of years, and I wanted to share some of my thoughts on the short game. When you stop your hands at impact, the leading edge rises up, the bounce gets increased, and you blade it.
When I heard him talk about the game, what he had to say about the game, particularly the short game, I found it very different from the sort of conventional golf instruction 101 that we've all heard 100 times for years. I found it personal to him, original with him, unique, and so different in some ways that it seemed even revolutionary.
I see two things being taught. One of them is referring to a clock where you go back and through the same distance. That's crazy. So much of it contradicts modern day teaching, stuff that I see great teachers from today talking about. I feel like the long game has really advanced over the years, but the short game, with the exception of Dave Pelz, and now there's one other credible short game instructor besides Pelz really out there, that short game instruction hasn't kept pace with long game, and so felt like this was a great opportunity for me to share some of the knowledge that I've developed over the years, and it's helped me win so many tournaments. When I tell others, I had no way of showing it until now. This putting tutor that you and I have devised shows us where exactly we're aimed and how much each putt breaks.
There has been a fair amount of instruction about the short game, but sometimes it's by players who don't themselves play the short game well, aren't themselves able at playing the short game. And so he got the feeling that his approach to the short game, he could explain well, and that it could be understood by an audience, and more importantly, that it could be applied, that they could use it and help their game and enjoy the game of golf more.
I hope I was able to articulate it in a way everybody can understand. I tried to simplify it. These shots that look ridiculously hard are actually pretty easy. The shots that have given people so much trouble over the years, the wedge shot from 30, 40, 50 yards, some of the bunker shots just aren't that hard once you build a foundation for your short game. Once your technique is proper, all those shots are easy to create from that one technique. It doesn't take a lot of different shots and swings to hit those shots. It takes one basic technique, and with some adjustments in the setup, you're able to hit a variety of shots.
I think he may be the most intellectual great golfer since Bobby Jones. And he has a very mathematical mind. He has a very scientific mind. He's a huge intellect. And he sees the game in a very sort of scientific way. And yet, what he does is actually fairly simple. And more importantly, he's articulate, and he can explain it in a way that sort of brings it all down to a common denominator, which is now the way he understands it, so that he can explain it to people. So by the time people get a chance to hear it and apply it, it's very straightforward, nothing too complicated.
Yeah, so the hinge and hold is a factor in this. Because you don't ever have the club pass through. Right. They're working together. So what you have to do the basic chip before you go to bunker play. Once you have that, you have now the foundation to become a good bunker player.
Yeah, and they will, because that'll be the segment immediately preceding this one.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've kind of nicknamed it a hinge and hold, because in chipping, you should break your wrists early and hold it going through. And the way to hold it is to accelerate your hands into the finish. I was able to demonstrate how to perform the hinge and hold, and then how to make modifications to hit lob shots, higher softed shots, spinning shots that take that same basic method, and you're able to hit a variety of shots.
You know, Phil Mickelson has been so brilliant at the short game for years that golf writers and golf commentators are sort of beginning to run out of words to describe his brilliance, but the question still remains, how does he do it? And here in this instructional DVD, he pretty much explains it A to Z.
And although over the years full swing instruction has improved dramatically, short game instruction has not. I wanted to show how easy the short game can be, how much fun you can have hitting shots around the greens. And I wanted to break down some of the shots that people ask me, how do I hit the lob shot? How do I hit the backward shot? Not that we ever want to really hit that in play.
Oh, I misread it.
I wanted to show how these shots work and that the physics behind them aren't hard to accomplish.
You could argue that he's the greatest short game player ever. I mean, today, he's the greatest short game player of this generation. Well, you think of Seve and you think of Tiger, but, you know, certainly in that short list would be Phil. And if he's the greatest short game player of today, you could argue that he may be the greatest short game player in the history of golf. So I have a huge regard for him personally, professionally, and his skills. And I think we can think of something really nice to say to kind of put all of this into context, you know. I think we went in knowing that this had a chance to be really good, and we also wanted to make the process fun. As a producer and director, I always try to create an environment where the announcer, whether it's Jim McKay, Jack Whitaker, Peter Allis, Dave Marr, and all the great, wonderful guys, Rossi, all the great, wonderful guys I worked with, Judy Rankin, women. I always try to create an environment where they can be as great as they can be. And I believe we did that for Phil, and I think he's pretty terrific. Yeah, it would be good if you could give us a sense about how far that hinge goes back here, okay? Because there, the short chip shots, it's apparent. It's very obvious and clear.
It's flattering that he felt that. I know Terry's great at what he does. I felt like it went well. I felt like I was able to get across what I had written down in an outline and articulate in a way that I think is easy to understand, but I won't know until I get the feedback from the audience.